Guys, welcome back to my second ever episode of Lily's Little Life Corner. Today we are going to be talking about the NewJeans situation, but with this comes a couple of disclaimers that I have to say because this is an emotionally charged situation and there's a lot of confusing and moving parts, and the things that we know that are set in stone right now might come out later to be completely different, right? And so the understanding of the situation is a little bit murky even in Korea, and so I did want to talk about these disclaimers, which I feel are very, very important. But before I get started, I do want to remind you guys that you can listen to this in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So if you are on the go and you want to listen to my take on this, you can absolutely look for Lily's Little Life Corner on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So, disclaimers. I'm not a lawyer, and so therefore I won't be talking about the legal side of things. Like I said, the trial and the legal side of it, they're still going. They're still ongoing, and I don't want to get into it because not only am I not a lawyer, but I don't know Korean. And so I can't read the sources straight out of Korea, you know what I mean? So we're not going to be talking about the legal side of things. I will be more so talking about how grooming affects everyone, not just normal people. It can affect celebrities included, right? So that's what I'm going to be talking about it. But I'm going to be talking about it from an armchair psychology perspective, like I say. So this is another disclaimer that I'm not a licensed psychologist. I'm just a psychology enthusiast. And if you guys have a different opinion than I do, please do feel free to comment down below. Also, because this is a legal matter, I do have to say this. All of my opinions are opinions alone, and I don't want anyone to act out based off of my opinions. I don't want anyone to act out for any reason, right? But especially not for my opinions. And so if you will be commenting not only on this podcast, but also on other TikToks or anything else, I do have to ask that you don't send hate to anyone. This is a given. But because, again, this is an emotionally charged conversation and everyone has a bunch of different opinions, I do have to ask that you be respectful and that you don't send hate to anyone. Also, all of the things that I say are alleged. Like I said, we still don't know the facts of the case 100%. There's a lot of moving parts still, but I did want to use kind of NewJeans as an example of how victims of manipulation, victims of grooming are not believed. It's always believe all victims until a victim comes out and says their story. So anyway, let's get into it. So I'm going to summarize as best as I can this situation, but like I said, there's still a lot of moving parts and a lot of the sources are biased, and so I'm going to be kind of explaining it as best as I can, as best as I understand it. Again, if I get anything wrong, please do correct me, but this is from my understanding. This is how the situation went down. So there's two important players here besides NewJeans, and that is the music label hybe. Hybe used to be Big Hit Entertainment, and that is the company that BTS is signed under, right? And that's the company where BTS got its start. They used to be very, very poor before BTS, but after BTS and after the success of BTS, hybe started acquiring and making smaller companies. One of these companies was Adore. Now, the CEO of Adore, Min Hee-jin, joined Big Hit Entertainment in July of 2019. She was tasked with creating a new girl group for hybe, but she was later moved to be CEO of Adore when Adore was created in 2019. So this is a brand new company, brand new CEO, and brand new girl group. In 2019, auditions started kind of worldwide, And then finally, in July 22nd, 2022, NewJeans debuted. And there was a lot of controversy already with their debut because of their ages. For example, the oldest member, Minji, was born in 2004, and the youngest member, Hyein, was born in 2008. So you can see how that would cause a little bit of controversy. So not only were they children, like actual children when they were recruited in 2019, but even now, a few of them are still minors. But that didn't stop their success. That didn't stop them from growing exponentially. Ever since their debut, their sound has been really, really popular, not only in Korea, but also worldwide. They have had so many comebacks since they debuted, and they've also had so many advertisements with brands like Coca-Cola, brands like iPhone. So they're really, really popular, and it's only been 2 years since they debuted. And their latest comeback was a few months ago with a Japanese comeback. But also a few months ago, Hybe and Minhyejin started a legal battle. Hybe claimed that Minhyejin was sabotaging them and trying to sell NewJeans to an outside company so that she could get full control of NewJeans, and so Hybe wouldn't be able to interfere with NewJeans anymore. Minhyejin, however, claimed that other Hybe groups, such as recently debuted Islet and Le Seraphim, were copying NewJeans' concept and choreography. The Korean courts ultimately ruled in Minhyejin's favor, citing that inspiration for choreography needs to be clearly stated. But during court proceedings, some kind of suspicious things came out about Minhyejin. Recently also, Hybe demoted Minhyejin from CEO of Adore to creative director of Adore, and a new CEO was appointed. The NewJeans girls have always said that Minhyejin has always protected them and always had their best interests at heart. However, during the court proceedings, disturbing text messages were shown where Minhyejin is fat-shaming the girls, telling someone that she only debuted the pretty ones, and saying that the NewJeans girls annoyed her and that they constantly needed attention. She also said very, very unsavory things about not only Le Seraphim and Islet members, but also BTS. However, if you think this means that Hybe is the good party in all of this, you are wrong, because they did not stay too far behind. They released confidential trainee videos of NewJeans members, and Hybe staff were caught talking badly about NewJeans, even recently, as in a few weeks ago, not only during the court proceedings. So, as you can see, these young girls do not have support from pretty much anyone around them. However, they still support Minhyejin and still believe that she has their best interests at heart. Some people started saying that maybe the text messages were faked, but Minhyejin herself came out and apologized to the NewJeans girls and said that she was just having a bad day when she sent those messages. So those messages, per Minhyejin herself, are real. Anyway, the NewJeans girls defend her still. So much so that just a few weeks ago, the NewJeans girls set up a new YouTube channel and started a live stream where they tell Hybe that they want Minhyejin back as their CEO. In the live stream, they also tell how they feel isolated from other Hybe groups, and Honey tells a story about how she tried talking to another group, but their manager told them to ignore her. Honey then told their new CEO about it, and their new CEO allegedly told her to forget about it and that it was no big deal. There's a couple of things that we must mention for the live stream. Number one is that they allege that they didn't tell anyone about the live stream, but that they did ask a manager to help them set up. I'm assuming they meant set up like the lights, because if you watch live stream, you can see that there's pretty big lights shining, so that's what I'm assuming they meant. But some people are taking this to mean that they lied. They also, because they didn't tell anyone, were breaking the rules. Hybe has since come out and responded to the live stream, saying that they will not reinstate Minhyejin as CEO of Adore for a good reason, because there's a lot of allegations with Minhyejin and she's just not a good person. but that they offered her the position of creative director so that she could still have control over their music, their sound, their concept, which is one of the things that the girls were worried about. They said that they feared they wouldn't have as much creative control if Min Hee-jin was not CEO, and that the reason why they preferred Min Hee-jin as CEO is because she would take their ideas into consideration and she would take their input and actually input it into songs, music videos, etc. They also stated that they reviewed the CCTV footage and that the group that Honey tried to greet was Islet. Honey in the live stream did not say who the group was. She just said, I tried to greet a group, but their manager told me that they should ignore me. They also kind of threatened NewJeans by saying those who follow the rules will succeed. Min Hee-jin has also since come out and said that she knew about the live stream and told them not to do it. So this is just another, because during the live stream, the NewJeans girls were saying Min Hee-jin does not know about this. Min Hee-jin did not ask us to do this. So with Min Hee-jin's statement, a lot of people are tagging NewJeans as liars, saying that obviously Min Hee-jin knew, so why would you say she didn't? Jungkook recently also, like this past week, posted an Instagram post with the hearts of the colors of the NewJeans members and said, young artists are not guilty. Hybe then later confirmed with Jungkook, and he said, yes, I did mean to support NewJeans. Young artists are not guilty. Jungkook has been in the industry since he was 13 years old, so he knows kind of what it's like. And then Danielle responded with her own post, also including the hearts, but also a blue cap. And the blue cap has since come to represent Min Hee-jin. So a lot of fans and non-fans are taking this to mean that Danielle and the NewJeans girls are still standing strong behind Min Hee-jin. But again, this podcast is not about the legal issues. This is just the summary from the stuff I've seen. Again, if I missed anything, please let me know. But again, this is not about their legal issues. This is about something different. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of context. In my own personal opinion, I believe that the girls are not being supported by anyone around them. I also believe that they are, in fact, being groomed, and I think they should get more support from Hybe's staff and from their new CEO. I think they should be put into counseling, and I think their contact with Min Hee-jin should be limited. But I also believe that Hybe's staff should stop talking badly about them. But let's get into some of the takes that I've seen online, and let's start talking and dissecting kind of what every victim of grooming goes through when they come out with their story. Some of the most heinous takes I've seen have come from non-NewJeans fans. I myself am not a NewJeans fan. If you know anything about me, you know that I am not a fan of underage idols, right? That's just weird to me. I'm no longer at the age where I can stan a 16-year-old like I used to when I was 12 and I stand One Direction, you know what I mean? So I no longer am fans of young idols, especially not underage idols who are just barely coming into the world, you know, they're just barely starting to experience the world. However, some of these takes from non-fans don't seem to have any empathy at all, or even take into consideration that they are young girls. Even though I myself am not a fan of NewJeans, I can still see when they are in kind of an awful situation, and I can still have empathy for them because they are young. Some of these takes are putting all the blame on NewJeans and calling them liars and blaming them for Min Hee-jin's actions. For example, when Hybe responded to Honey's allegations that a manager of Islet told Islet to ignore Honey, some people started saying, well, maybe she misunderstood the situation. Maybe because ignore her and 2 p.m. sounds similar in Korean and she's not a native Korean speaker, maybe she misunderstood. Maybe the manager was telling them something at 2 p.m. instead of ignore her. However, I think that Honey was able to read the context of the situation. For example, if someone is greeting you and they're like, hi, oh my god, hi. And then someone tells them something and they react with, and their smiles drop, their hands drop, their heads drop. They kind of go into like a shy position. And also, the thing that you heard sounded like ignore her. You're more likely to believe that the manager told them to ignore you, you know? I think even if the manager was telling Eyelet 2 p.m. or whatever it is that netizens are saying the manager said besides ignore her, I think Honey was still able to read the context of the room and maybe the context of the room and the behavior of Eyelet members changed, and that is why she said what she said. Some of these other takes are saying that NewJeans is enabling their fans to act a certain way against other hybe groups and that they should have just stayed quiet. Other takes agree that they should have stayed quiet about everything, but only to save their careers. I've seen a lot of TikToks saying, oh, this is the end of NewJeans. RIP NewJeans, we will miss you. Their recent comeback was their disbandment song. And to that, I just have to say, like, I disagree with the fact that they should have stayed quiet. I think a lot of people aren't taking into consideration that you don't just get into this industry just for fun. They are clearly very passionate about their work, and they know that they're going to get in trouble, and they know that this could be the end of NewJeans, but they're still speaking out, and for that they are so brave. And I think that's what a lot of people are overlooking. A lot of people are more worried about whether they'll be able to stream their songs versus the actual well-being of the NewJeans girls. Also, to the people that are saying, oh, well, NewJeans is just enabling their fans to act a certain way, I also disagree with that. I think bunnies, as NewJeans fans are called, are acting the way they want to act, the way that they will always act. NewJeans has no control over that. Also, like I said, you don't just get into this industry for fun. You have to have a real passion for it. You have to not only have a real passion for singing, you have to have a real passion for dancing, and you have to have a real passion for performing. NewJeans are passionate about everything. They're passionate about dancing, singing, and even composing their own songs and lyrics. Like I said, they are very involved in their music production, and they're passionate enough to the point where their parents said, yes, you can go to these auditions. Yes, you can. I will allow you to become a K-pop idol because obviously you have enough passion for it. I always think about the story of Rose and how Rose did not want to go to the YG auditions. And for those of you who don't know, Rose is another K-pop idol. She's in the group Blackpink, and she shares this story about how when she was 14, she didn't even know that YG auditions were opened. YG is another K-pop company. But because every night she would sit at the piano and she would play songs and she would sing songs, her dad signed her up to those auditions and told her, you need to go. You need to go audition and you cannot come back because obviously you have passion for this. And she even says to herself, he probably didn't want me singing in the middle of the night, because that's what she would do. In the middle of the night, she would get up, she would go to the piano, and she would start singing her lungs out. I also think about, and this is not a K-pop idol, but I also think about Perry from Little Mix. And her mom also did a very similar thing. Perry loved to sing, and she would always sing her lungs out. And her mom told her, hey, there's X Factor auditions. Go to them and don't come back. You're not coming back. I don't want you back. I want you to go live out your dreams. I want you to go be a singer. So that to me just makes me think clearly the NewJeans members had a passion for this. So much so that their parents knew that the K-pop idol industry was tough, but still allowed their young girls to audition. So NewJeans isn't just talking about this because they want their careers to end. They're talking about this because they're passionate about what they do. They're passionate about having creative control over their music, and they want to continue having creative control over their music. They don't want to be pushed aside. They don't want to be punished for what Min Hee-jin has done. Even though they support her, I feel like they kind of know that they're being punished for what Min Hee-jin is doing. They support her, but her actions have caused hybe staff to look at NewJeans with kind of a side eye. That's one thing that was kind of clear to me when I watched these clips of the live stream, because the live stream has now been deleted, is that they kind of know what's going on. They know that they're being pushed to the side. They know, or at least they feel like they know, that they won't have any more comebacks, and that hybe will put them in the dungeon, as K-pop fans like to say. And that to me is why they did that live stream, because they're so passionate about what they do, because they love what they do, and they fear that they won't be able to do what they do. Someone on TikTok explained this very well, and she said, even if NewJeans are able to go the rest of the years without making music, and they're able to depart from hybe like they naturally would after their contract expires, even after that, they might not be able to make music, because when K-pop idols leave a company, their contract says they can't join another company for the next couple of years, sometimes for 6 months, 12 months, whatever the case may be, because of that exclusivity clause that is in the initial contract. So they might go 5 years, 5, 7, 8 years without making music. And I think they know this, but their passion is strong enough for them to say, we don't want to go the next 5 years without making music. We want to be able to make music for the next 5 years. We don't want to be pushed to the side. And I think that's why it was very brave of them to speak about it, because not only does it shine a light on the mistreatment from hybe employees, allegedly, but it also lets hybe know that fans are with them, non-fans are with them, and other idols in the industry are with them. They have received so much support from other idols in the industry, not just Jungkook. And I think this puts pressure on hybe. And I really do think it was the best course of action for them to speak about it. Those are my opinions. These takes of oh, you should have just stayed quiet are just another example of how everyone seems to say, believe all victims, until celebrities become those victims. I think the reason why they're getting a lot of hate is because they support Min Hee-jin. But there's a couple of different things that you have to understand before you are able to say, oh, NewJeans are so horrible, they support Min Hee-jin. Number one, life with Min Hee-jin was their normal. That is their normal. They only know how to interact with her. And that's very on purpose, but I'll talk about that later. What they were asking in the live stream was for their normal to return. They're scared of the change, and they're scared about what the change means to them. So they're asking for their normal to come back. I also think you guys are forgetting that they are Gen Z. They're celebrities, but they're still Gen Z. And they grew up on the internet, and they saw things like the Me Too movement. They saw people saying, if something happens to you, speak up. This is them speaking up. And although their thing isn't a Me Too thing, and although their alleged grooming is not necessarily sexual from what we are able to understand, it is still them speaking up, and it is still them asking for support. This is them saying that they need help. I also think you guys are forgetting how disciplined you have to be a K-pop idol. These girls are disciplined. They otherwise wouldn't break the rules. So for them to break the rules is a really big thing. A lot of K-pop idols share stories of when they break the rules, right? So for example, they'll break their diet, they'll break curfew, they'll break a dating rule, and they share about how they get in a lot of trouble. I can guarantee that NewJeans in the past has broken a rule and has gotten into a lot of trouble. So they know that by breaking the rules, they will get in trouble. This is what I mean. It's not something that they took lightly. It's not something that they just did willy-nilly. It's not something that they just did for fun, you know? And a lot of takes are making it seem like they just did this for fun, like they didn't know the consequences. And even though they're young, I think that's infantilizing them a little bit too much. Yes, they are young, but they still know the consequences of breaking rules. They still know what might happen to them. They probably made this live stream not expecting any kind of support from anyone. So for Jungkook and other idols from the industry to back them and support them, that must have been huge. But let's start talking about Minhyejin, because this is where a lot of people kind of get confused. They start asking, okay, yes, I can see how NewJeans are in a tough situation with hybe, but they support Minhyejin, so why should I support them? They say things like, but Minhyejin said so many horrible things about NewJeans, how can they still defend her? And to that I want to ask, have you guys ever had a friend, a parent, a teacher, someone that you know that is really, really mean to you, but you still talk to this person, you still seek out their advice, and you still respect them and their opinions? You most likely do this because they're so brutally honest. Maybe you have a friend who has a friend that's brutally honest, and you always ask your friend, why do you hang out with them? Why do you trust them? They're so rude. How could you hang out with them? How do you not find them rude? It's because those brutally honest and rude people have some sort of trustworthiness to them. You can go to that brutally honest person when you're seeking advice because you know that they will tell you the absolute truth. They will be brutally honest. That is kind of what Minhyejin is to them, right? She is someone who they see as trustworthy because she's brutally honest. There's a point in the Le Sserafim documentary where it's before they debut and the managers are telling Le Sserafim, you need to self-manage yourself because some of you guys have gained weight and we can't have that, right? And that goes to show obviously the fat shaming of the industry and all this kind of stuff. But the girls, instead of replying how you or I would reply, which is, well, I'm only human, I need to eat, I still look skinny, is that not enough? The girls said, yes, we need to try harder. The Le Sserafim girls started crying and saying, yes, I agree, we do need to try harder. And that just struck me because I would not have replied like that. I would have said, I'm trying really, really hard, but I can't lose the weight. And I think I look skinny enough, and there's no reason why you should weigh me if I look a certain weight. But this just goes to show how tough the industry is, but also goes to show how NewJeans might have replied to the fat shaming. Because there's a lot of allegations that Minhyejin was very mean to them and fat shamed them to their face, right? And said, you guys are so fat. You guys will never make it in this industry. Believe it or not, I feel like a lot of idols get treated like that, you know, allegedly. And the idols never come out and say, yeah, that was really mean. They will instead come out and say, it was for the best. The staff who told me that I was fat was only looking out for me. And that's another thing that a lot of people should take into consideration, because it's not just NewJeans who get fat shamed and then who defend the person who fat shamed them. And I'm sure this has happened to some people out there, right? Where if you're overweight, I mean, it's happened to me, where even when I was really, really young, I had friends who would fat shame me and who would say, you need to lose weight. And I would think they're only saying this because they care about me. Nowadays, with body positivity and with more awareness that just because someone might look overweight doesn't unnecessarily mean that they're unhealthy, we are able to look at that and we are able to see this is just a beauty standard that is being perpetuated. But in an industry where beauty standards are not only being perpetuated, but they are something to achieve, these idols look at that as, this person's only looking out for me. So it's not just NewJeans, you know? It's not just NewJeans, it's not just Minhyejin, it's other idols as well. But also, there's so much context that everyone seems to be forgetting. A lot of people wonder, well, Min Hee-jin is so mean to you guys. Why do you still defend her? But they don't take into consideration that literally every other adult around them in the hybe building seems to absolutely hate them. And we can see this in the leaked messages from hybe employees who are not only bullying NewJeans, but they're also bullying Jungkook because he came out in support of NewJeans. If we are to say that Min Hee-jin is a groomer, we also need to recognize that this exact environment is what a groomer wants. This is a dream to not only groomers, but also abusers. NewJeans are so isolated, and that is the goal for groomers and abusers. That is why groomers and abusers isolate people. And I'm not saying that Min Hee-jin is 100% a groomer or even an abuser, but there's a lot of people who think that she is. And there's a lot of people who wonder, why would NewJeans defend someone so horrific? It's because they're allegedly being groomed. And I need everyone who says Min Hee-jin is a groomer, but NewJeans are at fault, to take a step back and really examine the situation. If you truly, truly believe that Min Hee-jin is a groomer, but you hate that NewJeans agreed to sue Islet, or you hate what bunnies are saying to Islet, LE SSERAFIM, BTS, then you don't actually know how grooming works. So I want to read to you guys this website. It is nspcc.org.uk, and I will put it in the description or in the show note. So they ask, what is grooming? Grooming is when someone builds a relationship, trust, and emotional connection with a child or young person so they can manipulate, exploit, and abuse them. There's a few different kinds of grooming, and it can take a couple of different forms, such as a romantic relationship, or a mentor, an authority figure, or a dominant and persistent figure. They go on to say, groomers might also try to isolate children from their friends and family, making them feel dependent on them and giving the groomer power and control over them. They might use blackmail to make a child feel guilt and shame, or introduce the idea of secrets to control, frighten, and intimidate. It's important to remember that children and young people may not understand they've been groomed. They may have complicated feelings like loyalty, admiration, love, as well as fear, distress, and confusion. Later on in the page, there's a section titled Effects of Grooming. Grooming can have both short-term and long-term effects. The impact of grooming can last a lifetime, no matter whether it happened in person, online, or both. There's anxiety and depression, post-traumatic stress, self-harm, eating disorders, difficulty coping with stress, relationship problems with family, friends, and partners. So let's take this step by step, right? NewJeans themselves obviously wanted to form a relationship with not only LE SSERAFIM, but Islet. Not only did Honey share that story of when she tried to greet Islet, right? She tried to greet them, she tried to form a relationship, but obviously she perceived that manager to tell Islet, ignore her, don't pay attention to her. And there's a video where NewJeans and LE SSERAFIM are greeting each other. LE SSERAFIM debuted very close to NewJeans' debut, and they were finally able to meet, and there's a video of them meeting, and they're all so excited to meet each other. But if we're entertaining the idea that they're being groomed, we have to start looking at what the groomer, in this case Min Hee-jin, allegedly, might do. The groomer's fear is that their secrets get exposed and that their victims start talking, especially if the people that they're talking to are adults, and both Islet and LE SSERAFIM have adult members who grew up not being groomed, allegedly. That is why the isolation happens. And even if NewJeans themselves are not saying, I'm being groomed, I need help, they might start saying things like, yeah, Min Hee-jin told me to not talk to my childhood friend. Min Hee-jin told me I need to do X, Y, and Z. That alone is enough for an outside source to plant the seed of doubt, right? To say, hey, don't you think this is a little weird? And at first, and this is just in general, right? At first, if you are being groomed and you talk to a friend and you say, yeah, so this figure, this person that I'm talking to told me to not talk to my mom or dad, told me don't talk to your friend. The friend that you're talking to might say, don't you think that's a little weird? And at first, as a victim of grooming, you might say, no, why would that be weird? They're just looking out for me. They have my safety in mind. They probably saw my friend do something that they didn't like. They probably heard my parents say something about me that they didn't like, right? As a victim of grooming, you will defend that person and you will say, but why would I doubt them? They're just looking out for me. But that seed of doubt is planted. That friend that you talked to and said, so-and-so told me that I shouldn't talk to you anymore because you're not a good friend to me. And your friend replies, that's a little weird. When have I ever done anything to make you doubt me? We've always been good friends. We've always trusted each other. I've always had your back. That seed of doubt is planted in your head. And so next time your groomer tells you, hey, maybe you shouldn't talk to so-and-so, you might start thinking, but why shouldn't I talk to so-and-so? And you might ask your groomer, why shouldn't I talk to them? And they'll tell you, oh, because X, Y, and Z. And you'll think, oh yeah, that sounds reasonable. But then it happens again. And you think again, but this friend that you're telling me not to talk to has never done anything to me. Why are you telling me to not talk to them? I've always trusted them. They've always trusted me. Why shouldn't I talk to them? And more you start to question, why are you telling me to do these things? This has never happened before. Why are you the only person that I should trust? So this is why groomers don't want people talking. They don't want their victims to have friends. They don't want their victims to talk to anyone. So let's go back to NewJeans and let's kind of look at it from the perspective of Minhyejin is a groomer, NewJeans are the victims, right? Like a lot of people are saying. Minhyejin might have pulled NewJeans aside after NewJeans met Le Seraphim, or after Hani tried to greet Islet, and she might have told them, don't be friends with them. Don't you know? They're trying to steal a spotlight from you. Don't you know they're copying you? They're fake friends. They're only going to use you for their own fame. Trust me. I know what's best for you. This is what gets me. Whenever someone says, oh, but Minhyejin is grooming them, is that, yeah, she might be grooming them, but you also are acting as if they're not being groomed. You're saying Minhyejin is grooming NewJeans, but NewJeans is at fault for everything that Minhyejin does. That doesn't make any sense. Grooming is horrible. It's horrific. There's a lot of manipulation involved, and it can absolutely turn your world upside down. And it can not only turn your world upside down when you realize that you've been groomed, and when you realize that this person that you really, really trusted is not to be trusted and was never to be trusted, it can also turn your world upside down as you're being groomed. You'll be told that best friend that you've always had since childhood and you've always trusted them, yeah, don't talk to them anymore. They're bad for you. I know best. Trust me. I know what's good for you. Oh, you trust your parents and you tell them everything? Well, stop doing that. Your parents aren't trustworthy. You should only trust me. So it only makes the groomer's job easier when everyone already hates you. And they might seek out people who are already lonely, people who are already the black sheep in not only their family, but their school. They don't have friends, and the friends that they do have are online. But they might also target those who have a trusted circle, those who have close friends and family. But little by little, they'll start making your friends and family doubt you, and they'll start making you doubt your friends and family. This is what grooming entails. So for you to say Minhyejin is a groomer, but then also turn your back on NewJeans, it's what Minhyejin would want, allegedly, right? If we were to say Minhyejin is a groomer, that's kind of what she wants. She wants fans to also isolate NewJeans, allegedly. Like I said, if Minhyejin is unlikable to the rest of hybe staff, and NewJeans always stands by her, hybe staff are going to associate NewJeans and Minhyejin, and they're going to, by default, be hated by hybe staff, and it shouldn't happen that way. Hybe staff are adults, and they should see NewJeans are defending Minhyejin because we're also not protecting them. Would you rather be friends with someone who you've trusted since you were 13 years old and who you perceive saved you and who you feel like you can go to with your secrets and your hardships and your troubles? Or would you rather be friends with someone who openly hates you? Would you rather be friends with someone who tells you, I'm only fat shaming you because I'm looking out for you, and because I really, really care about you, and because I want you to be healthy? Or would you rather be friends with someone who is talking about you behind your back and telling everyone else, don't pay attention to this person, don't talk to them, they're annoying? It's really sad. It's really, really sad, and it shouldn't be this way. Because again, like I said, Hybe staff are adults, and NewJeans are very young, and they should be protected 100%. But I find that a lot of the fans, or a lot of the netizens, I should say, that are talking about how Min Hee-jin is such a horrible person, don't also take into consideration how Min Hee-jin's actions might be affecting NewJeans. They're acting as if NewJeans should not be manipulated, should not be acting like a victim of manipulation. NewJeans are, in my humble and honest opinion, exhibiting signs that they are being groomed. By who? I don't know. A lot of people think it's Min Hee-jin. I cannot say that for sure. Like I said, we still don't know a lot of the facts of the case, but they are exhibiting signs of grooming, in my humble and honest opinion. And I think we should all start treating it like that. I think if you start hating on NewJeans, and if you start saying NewJeans are horrible, why would you betray Le Sserafim like that? Why would you betray Islet like that? You're only contributing to their isolation. You're only contributing to what their groomer would want. And it's really sad to me that celebrities aren't seen as real people. I understand that there are some instances where celebrities are just not the same as regular people like you and I, right? They have so much more money than us. They have so many more resources than us. But being a celebrity and being rich and being in the public eye is not a shield from things like depression, things like being groomed. If anything, it only makes you more vulnerable to those things. And I think that's what we should keep in mind whenever we talk about idols and whenever we talk about celebrities. And it's also sad to me that in an industry that is so curated and so created and so perfected by a million different people, that idols, individual idols, are still the ones being blamed for decisions that are out of their control, like completely and utterly out of their control. And NewJeans is one of those idols that are being blamed for things that are out of their control. And they're not only being blamed by things that are out of their control by fans and by netizens, but they're also being blamed by the people that are supposed to protect them. Hybe, the company that took on that responsibility to protect them. But anyway, I want to end on one of the takes that I really, really enjoyed. And I want to watch it with you guys together.
Personally, I think NewJeans are really fucking cool and really brave for doing what they've done. I've been thinking about it for a minute, and I'm not sure that a lot of K-pop fans have realized that this is essentially a strike, right? The girls made their demands, they listed their grievances, they gave a timeline. This is a strike. And I think it's a bit harder to grasp the class consciousness to approach it with because they're celebrities and we're not, right? But at the end of the day, these are people being exploited by a corrupt work environment who are trying to make the best life for themselves. The reaction of, oh, their careers are over, oh, they're ruining their careers, this is bad PR, I'm sorry, it's a bit obtuse. That is what you put on the line when you rise up against your employers. Not only is it sophomoric, but it subverts the agency and the intelligence of these young women, right? I'm sure they understand that non-compliance is a faux pas. As maybe not to the full extent of their contract, but on some level, I'm sure they know their live stream was not a good idea for PR. Not only is PR outside of scope, but demonstrably their priorities seem to be making the kind of music and artistry that they wish to make. And Min Hee-jin is integral to that. Which leads me to the idea that I'm seeing that she must have manipulated the girls into saying this, and I'm here to say I think that's actually kind of redundant. Because the two options at that point are to fight for your former creative team or to acquiesce, right? And that route seems like, based on what they've said, with, replacing Min Hee-jin with a female CEO who doesn't really care for their artistic development, having groups compete with them, having groups isolate them, That route sounds like they'll be handed some lackluster concepts that don't quite suit their image and then eventually fall off and then disband. And it wouldn't be the first time. Yeah, Glam, a joint venture between Source and Big Hit. They had a B-girl, they had the voice bank provider for the first ever Korean Vocaloid, they had a girl from K-pop star, set for success, and then they released one song in March 2013 and had no other schedules. Nothing planned, no variety, no dramas. They had nothing on the schedule up until September 2014 when the girl got arrested. Not to mention, while it is frustrating that children are being brought up into this corporate warfare, we really shouldn't decenter NewJeans from the conversation. What do the girls want? What is their goal, right? They're already being marginalized by the interests and powers that be. We shouldn't be a part of that. I think the reaction of, oh my God, their careers is really a reaction of, will they still make music? Which is one of consumption, right? And this issue is more about humanity and their rights as creatives. I guess my point is that, oh, my eyebrows almost wiped off. I guess my point is that this is a lesson in the consumer's role in capitalism, right? No ethical consumption, blase squaze. But what can we do to mitigate the harms that are a result of corporate greed and capitalist interest in artistic spaces? How can we best support these artists that we claim to like and love? I think step one is to stop caping for these companies, right? Stop getting wrapped up in the spectacle of things because they're entertaining. Stop standing, hitman bang. Step two would definitely be to abandon this shut up and dribble kind of attitude whenever idols are speaking out. I yapped for 3 minutes. I don't know if that was helpful or not, but I hope that this all works out for NewJeans. And I hope that you do too.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot more people are worried about whether they will be able to listen to NewJeans music, and they're not taking into consideration everything that I just talked about and also everything that this creator just talked about. And I will link the TikTok down in the description and the show notes as well. To wrap everything up, I think regardless of who they support, we should still acknowledge that their situation is shitty. Regardless of what we believe Min Hee-jin is doing, they feel safest around Min Hee-jin. And I don't blame them. I'm going to say that. I don't blame them for feeling the safest around Min Hee-jin. Because like I said, and like I've said many times in this episode, all the other adults around them are horrible. All the other adults around them are not trying to gain their trust, like what Min Hee-jin did. All the other adults around them are not putting their best interests at heart. All the other adults around them don't care about their artistic development, like NewJeans feel that Min Hee-jin did. So I don't blame them for feeling safest around Min Hee-jin, because Min Hee-jin has not only gained their trust, and this isn't to say that I think Min Hee-jin is a great person. I think she's not a great person, right? But I also can see that Min Hee-jin put in the work to gain their trust and put in the work to make them feel safe around her. And so I don't blame them for feeling safe around her. That is the work that she put in, and we're seeing her reap the benefits of what she sowed. And I think that's a very important thing to take into consideration as well, is that Min Hee-jin put in the effort. Other hybe staff are not putting in the effort. They're actually putting in the effort to do the exact opposite. So regardless of my own personal opinions on Min Hee-jin, and regardless of the things that I believe that she is, I still think that it's only fair that NewJeans feels safest around her. I feel it's obvious that the only person that NewJeans are going to feel safe around is the person who has put in the effort to make herself seem like a safe space for NewJeans. I hope you guys are understanding what I'm saying, and I hope you guys don't twist my words, because also, I know I said I'm wrapping it up, but also let's think about this as these girls are not NewJeans. Let's think about it like this is the lonely emo girl with the big black eyeliner, black hair. She's always wearing baggy sweaters. She's always wearing black clothes. She looks so sad and no one wants to be around her. Think about it that way. If an adult comes up to her and says, "You can feel safe around me. I will protect you," that girl isn't going to think about, "You're an adult, I shouldn't trust you." that girl is going to think about, everyone in school is bullying me. My parents don't like me. I have no one I can trust. I'm going to trust this adult. I'm thinking about it like that. And I think you guys should too. And I hope they do get out of that cycle. I hope they do get counseling for that. And I hope their parents are able to see that. And I hope their parents take them to counseling. And I think at this point, they have each other, and that's enough. I think as long as they have each other, they will be just fine, mentally and emotionally. But I also think that Hybe should really step up, and they should not allow the rest of their staff to isolate them so much. It's horrific. Their situation is awful. And like I was saying, I think regardless of who they support, we still need to acknowledge the fact that the cards that they've been dealt are horrific. They're awful. And I think we need to have empathy for that. And I think that we as consumers of K-pop shouldn't isolate them more than they already are. I don't think we should be contributing to that. Whenever someone is a victim of grooming, the worst thing you could do is leave them alone. And obviously, it's not their fault. It's not your fault that they're being groomed. But I think the worst thing you could do is leave them alone. I think obviously there's exceptions to that. You know, for example, if the grooming victim starts doing things to you that aren't great. But if the groomer of this grooming victim comes to you and starts telling you all these rumors, start saying, your friend is talking shit about you, I don't think you should believe that. I think, and this goes out to everyone who has a friend that's a little too old to be hanging out with them. Right? This goes out to all of my young people who are watching this. If you have a friend who has a friend that's a little bit too old to be hanging out with you guys, you should not leave your friend alone. You need to support that friend, because the worst thing that could happen to a grooming victim is for everyone except their groomer to leave them. And yeah, I'm going to end on that note. But again, I do invite you guys to comment on the YouTube video or on the Spotify podcast. Spotify, you can now leave comments on the podcasts. And let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you disagree with me. Let me know if you agree with me. And let's start a conversation. But again, let's keep it civil and don't send hate to anyone. I think that's also a really bad thing to do, is just to send hate to people. Actually, okay, I want to talk a little bit more about grooming. So on the same website, nspcc.org.uk, it says, if a child reveals abuse, listen carefully to what they're saying. Let them know that they've done the right thing by telling you. Tell them it's not their fault. Say you'll take them seriously and actually take them seriously. Don't confront the alleged abuser. Explain what you'll do next and report what the child has told you as soon as possible. And the people that you can go to report grooming, I will leave the link to that again in the description and in the show notes, as well as the link to the article that I'm reading from. You can also contact your local child protection services or police to report your concerns about any type of grooming, whether it's happening online, in person, or both. There's a lot of resources that you can go to, but the most important thing to remember is that you should not confront the alleged abuser. Really, really do not confront them. Because if you confront them, there's a couple of different things that can happen, and your friend could be in a lot more trouble than you intended. So support your friend. If they come to you and they tell you, I think I've been groomed, tell them, I support you. I'm going to listen to you. I'm here for you. You can trust me. Because again, you have to remember, a lot of the times groomers will say, you cannot trust your friends, right? So you have to remind your friend, you can trust me because I will help you. And then report to either a teacher, counselor, your parents, police, local child protection services, and be with your friend. Support your friend and don't isolate them more than they've already been isolated. And that is all that I have for this podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. And again, if you are going to talk in the comments, please do keep it civil. Please take into consideration the fact that this is a really difficult situation to go through. Also, to the people who have subscribed to my Patreon, thank you. But these notes for this particular podcast will be up a little bit late. This was kind of an emergency upload, and also they're going to be a little bit shitty looking because I wrote them in a really small notebook, but I will get them uploaded today, hopefully. But anyway, thank you so much for watching this podcast. Remember that you can listen to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or here on YouTube. And please make sure to follow and subscribe and let me know what you guys think and if you agree or if you disagree or whatever the case may be. All right, I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.